Hi, good morning. This is I would say a talk, but it's really more of a discussion. There's a couple of different emergencies that we see very commonly through the emergency service. Perhaps the most common phone call that we get, other than pets ingesting things that they shouldn't, is a broken toenail. Whether the dog, typically dogs more than cats, but typically the dog either caught their nail on the carpet or in between the deck boards, etc. The other is whenever we're trimming the nails and they cut them a little bit too short. I'm horrible about that, and the cause of bleeding, and what do we do in that type of situation. This is one of those emergency types of situations that most of the time you can deal with at home. The big thing to remember is always cut beyond the pink vessel. If you've got dogs that have light colored or white toenails, if you'll look on the nail itself, towards the end of the nail, it turns from a pink to just all white. And you can cut all the way up to that pink, but you don't want to encroach in that pink. That's where the blood vessel comes through that nail, and with that blood vessel comes also a nerve, and that's why your dog pulls away pretty rapidly whenever you cut that short. The downside of that, which I have experience in because I have a black Labrador Retriever, is black toenails aren't nearly as easy because you can't see the vessel. So that takes a little bit more just with experience. The important thing is if you keep control of those nails, if you keep cutting them, the quick won't grow out so far. So basically managing them by routinely clipping their nails will help it where the quick doesn't grow out quite so far. But what happens if you do quick? And what happens if they do start to bleed? A couple of easy things you can do. What we're going to try to do is help form a clot on the end of that toenail. The easiest thing to do is get a little bit of cornstarch, pinch it between your fingers, and put it right on the end of that nail, and hold it there. And that helps form a small blood clot. That blood clot then will help at least maintain what we call hemostasis, or stop bleeding. Maintain that for a few minutes while the body then forms a good clot. The problem is, again, if you have Labradors like mine, is the first thing they want to do is they want to pull back and then they go run through the house on your white carpet with their bloody toenail. So the big thing is also keeping your pets quiet. So either laying there, giving them a treat if they're food motivated, just sitting there petting them, etc. Keeping them calm so they don't feel the desire to run through the house. So if that doesn't help, and the other problem is the dog thinks that you've now made a very nice gravy with the blood and the cornstarch, and they try to lick it off of their feet, is you can use flour as well. But the other thing you can use is a bar of soap. So just use a regular bar of soap, and you actually just kind of turn the nail into the soap, and that'll actually help form a blood clot on the end of that as well. Again, after any of these times that we try to stop the bleedings, you want to keep them calm, you want to keep them quiet for probably 5 to 10 minutes. That will help get form the blood clot. Last but not least, and this is the importance of having a first aid kit at home, and I've had to go and resort to this measure several times on my own dogs, is to make a bandage to put over the foot. Now, the bandage that we're making isn't to stabilize a fracture, it's not meant to be long-term, etc. We're just looking to put pressure on this toenail and to try to stop the bleeding and also try to prevent the mess through the house. Even though there's a bandage on the foot, it's still very important that you don't let them run through the house, because the one thing that's going to make that clot come off the end of that toenail is trauma or motion. So the dog's running through the house, their nails pushing on the ground, even if they have a bandage over that nail, it's going to knock that blood clot off. So bandages are very easy to do in this type of situation. Again, it doesn't have to be a perfect bandage because it's not going to be on for long term. But a couple of things that are needed for a bandage. First is just some regular gauze. You can get 4x4 gauze squares in large bulk packages at the drugstore. So you can use these. The other thing you could use is the non-adherent bandages that you can get as well. Sometimes those are nice because they don't stick to the clot, and then when you pull the gauze off, the clot comes with it. So the non-adherent bandages are nice as well. The second part that's also involved is some type of what's called cotton wrap or cling or something of that nature. This is good for a couple of reasons. We'll talk about those in a minute, but for a bandage it's very important. And then finally what we use called vet wrap or cling wrap or something of that effect. It's just a nice elastic type of bandage material that sticks to itself. Unlike an ace bandage, you don't have to put one of those metal clamps on there, worry about the dog eating it, etc. And this again is readily available at a lot of your pet stores as well. So in order to do a bandage and to make an adequate bandage, first of all, Jerry, this is Jerry, by the way, he's our mannequin that we work with. You keep your pet calm, or you get them calm first of all. And then what you end up doing is it doesn't have to be right on the nail. It could be, any of these nails could be affected because your 4x4 gauze is big enough to cover the whole entire foot for most of the dogs. So you put the gauze over the end of the foot, and then what you do is you want to just wrap the cotton wrap or the cotton gauze around the foot. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty. Now, when we're wrapping the foot, we're not securing it for takeoff. We have to really just lay it on there gently. If you tow it too tight, seriously, you could cut off the circulation. So we don't want to be too aggressive, but you want to have it on there snug. Even with Jerry here, this bandage is slipping a little bit off the end of the toes, but again, it's not a long-term bandage. That's the important thing. Don't go through 3 or 4 bandage attempts, keep tearing it off because it doesn't look pretty enough. That's not the point. I've got a pair of bandage scissors here. These are nice because they've got a nice blunt edge on them, and they're safer, especially if you have a dog that's moving around. You don't want to go to them with some type of construction scissors or something like that, that then you're left with a laceration in addition to a toenail that's torn. So it's nice. You can buy the inexpensive bandage scissors. You don't have to get to the top of the line. Hopefully you won't be using it a lot. Then the next thing is, use the cling or the vet wrap then to go on top of the bandage, and this is going to be your next layer. Now this vet wrap, it's important. This has a lot of elasticity like we talked about, so we can really stretch this out. What happens though, if you stretch it out and then apply the wrap, then once it's on the leg, it cinches down on the leg and really constricts the leg. So more or less, you just want to almost just lay this on top and then crimp it down with your hands. So I just put a fairly loose bandage on here. And again, I'm not making it pretty at all. I wouldn't send your dog home like this. But just enough to stay on there. And this stuff, you could either cut it with scissors, but you can rip it with your hands as well. It's not difficult to rip. And then I just crimp it down on the foot like that. Okay? And there's an effective bandage. Okay? What you want to do, they're equivalent to their wrist joint. If you can make the bandage go up above that wrist joint, it tends to hold the bandage on just a little bit better. Okay. Some of you that might have working dogs or dogs that are outdoors a lot may have those little booties as well that can go on the feet. You could use those as well to go over the foot to protect the nail as well. But that's just a basic, simple bandage that we would use for any type of small wound or broken toenail. If there was a cut on the foot, you could do the same thing as well. But of course, you'd want to get medical attention for that as well. Applying ice to the nail, I've tried that before. In theory, a lot of people think that it works. It may work. I don't have very good success with it. What happens is it just makes a big watery mess typically whenever I do it. And it doesn't stop the bleeding that well. But that is something that you could try, especially if you don't have the cornstarch or the flour. Contact your veterinarian. Occasionally that is needed. Some breeds are predisposed to certain clotting abnormalities. The one that we think of the most is like a Doberman or something that has a clotting abnormality. So if they just will not stop bleeding, then sometimes we actually do either need to cauterize that vessel, or we can put a bandage on it, or do something else to try to help stop the bleeding.